Hello, everyone. This is George Rodlaga. I'd like to welcome you all to Author Success Roadmap, Session 1. So, today we're going to talk about monetization. So, here's our deal. So, I'm going to run the program for 2 months, which means I'm going to show you the way. In exchange, I'm going to ask that you write X amount of pages per day until you finish your first draft. So, that's going to happen starting on month 2. So, for the first month, we're going to have 4 webinar sessions. By the last week, you're going to create your table of contents, or TOC, which will enable you to finally start working on your first draft. So the work on that begins in the second month. So some of you may be worried about losing steam creatively, stopping along the way, getting writer's block. So I'd like to reassure you that that doesn't have to happen. In fact, when you write your book, there's no need to be creative or to reinvent the wheel. So the reason for that, and for you not getting stuck at all at any point, is that the way I will have you write is that you simply have to record and organize your knowledge and experience. So unlike a novel where you have to create characters, for example, and worlds from scratch, in your case, you already know what you know. All you have to do now is offload all that information in your head and organize it in a way that resonates and connects with the audience. So in other words, you're not inventing anything. And actually, the reason a lot of people get stuck when they write is that they get into this editing or reorganizing mode as they write. And let me tell you, that is a kiss of death. If you start fixing or cleaning up, polishing or editing, whatever you want to call it, that's when you get stuck. And the name of the game is finish your first draft as fast as you can without stopping. So how do you make your work interesting? How do you make it resonate? How do you make it a book that people can't wait to get to the end? And it becomes this huge page turner that people are excited to read and talk about. Well, it's pretty simple. The majority of content of your book has to be stories. So anywhere from between 30 to 70% of the content of your book will be stories, while the remaining balance will be your main ideas or key points. You see, without those stories, your book becomes this long, dry lecture or textbook that is so dull. People want to learn not only from you sharing your key points or ideas, but they also want to learn through examples, through stories that you're going to share. Now, are all these stories supposed to be your own? Well, preferably that would be ideal. But really, you can also say, well, this is my friend's story, or my father's story, or a story that I read in a newspaper or magazine. So those also qualify as supporting points for your main ideas. Bottom line is you have to have stories. And the more stories you have, the more your book will resonate. That's the trick. Okay, so one of the things I'd like you to start thinking about, and don't worry, this will be an assignment, is to think about at least a dozen stories from your life or that you've heard or that you know of that you'll be incorporating into your book. So remember that these stories are going to add some lightness, some humor, some interest to what could otherwise be a very long, dry kind of explanation or essay about what it is that you're passionate about. So start thinking about those stories, and I'll remind you about this again by the end of this call. Okay, so why are we talking about the business side of this book this early? Well, unlike other authors out there, I want you to differentiate yourselves by thinking about the marketing side even before you start writing your book. The thing is, it's too late to sell your book once you're done. You need to build your mailing list now. And you need to get people excited or informed that you're about to start writing a book. In fact, one of the things I'd like you to do is that as soon as this call is over, at the end of the day or tomorrow, I'd like you to tell everyone you know, everyone that's in your network, that you're going to write a book. The reason for that is that you want people to get excited and kind of involved in creation. The thing is, if you tell your peeps a year from now, after you finish your book, that, hey, I've written a book and here it is. It's easy for them to say, oh, okay, that's interesting. You get this kind of flat response. Oh, this momentary half second of excitement, but then they shrug their shoulders, almost like they didn't care. So why is that? Because you didn't get them involved in the creation. When someone first learns that you think about writing a book, and then that you start writing a book, and then you struggle along, and then stop for a day, and then resume, then keep on going till you finish, and then you ask for their help, either to review it, to tell other people, or to buy it. That's when they get excited, because that whole process can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months or a year. And when they know that that's happening or unfolding right before their very eyes, they become more emotionally invested. That's why you tell everyone you know now, not when you're done, because by then it kind of falls flat. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting, and then they continue doing what they were doing. But if you kind of pull people in early, well, guess what? They're going to root for you. Okay, so how do you classify these people? Well, there's 4. So first is your ambassadors. These will be people who will either review your book and submit a review on Amazon and or also buy a copy. The other kind of supporter is an endorser, which are kind of similar to the Amazon reviewer, except that their reviews are specifically destined for the back of your book. And then the gravy train is in C, is the event organizer. These are people who will get you booked as a speaker. So these are this C type of person, someone I'd like you to particularly focus on, because we're going to get back to this later on. The event organizers are literally going to put money in your pocket. And last but not least, you have the writing team. So these people may or may not be in your network yet. So start thinking about the writing team probably before the end of this month. So as part of your assignment, I'd like you to put together a names list of 500 more people consisting of primarily A to C, and then the writing team that'll come before the end of month 1. So if writing a book is the easy part, well, what's the most difficult part then? Well, you might have guessed it, it's marketing. Okay, so remember to give everyone in your network a heads up. So by the end of today or by tomorrow, I'd like you to tell everyone what your plans are. You're about to write a book. Primarily, again, the purpose of this is to get them excited. So when do you send a PDF of your book, which preferably would be a finished and totally edited first draft, to your Amazon reviewers? Well, ideally, you should give it to them 6 weeks before publication date or release date. So right now, I'd like you to start thinking of when you're going to release your book. Is it going to be before the end of the year, like in September, October, or even November? Or will it be early next year, between February and March, or even April? So from then, you need to work backwards. So why did I avoid December? Well, in December, you have a lot of people focusing on Christmas, going on holiday. You don't want to launch a book in a busy month like December, where everyone else is thinking of something else, and your book won't really get a lot of traction. So you decide on a date either before the end of the year, between September and November, or sometime in the first quarter or even the second quarter of next year. And then let's say if you decide in November to release in November, then that means you have to give your reviewers 6 weeks before. So if you decide to release your book November 15th, so 6 weeks before that is October 1. So you need that 6 weeks so that your reviewer can have 4 to 5 weeks to read through your book, and then a few days to write their blurb or their review. So, and then you don't want them waiting too long before the launch of your book that they forget about what they wrote and then forget about buying a book. So it has to be just close enough to the launch, but not too far out that you kind of lose their interest. And then the people who will write back cover blurbs or those kind of glowing reviews at the back of your book, you need to send a PDF of your book again a month or two before you print it, because you also need them to read part. They don't have to read your entire book. They can just read part of your book and submit your review after about a month, just in time for you to give the information to your cover designer or your graphic designers, whoever's going to help you design your cover. It's the cover design. So here's some samples of reviews. So I have an Amazon review sample and a back cover blurb. Now they're almost identical. Probably the only difference is that back cover blurbs tend to be shorter and they look like more of an endorsement and call to action. So just to summarize, a back cover blurb sounds and looks like this. A great book, buy it. So that's a back cover blurb. It's short, specific, it's call to action. Now an Amazon review version of the same blurb, right? Remember, it's great book, buy it. This is what an Amazon review version of that same blurb looks like. So I enjoyed reading George's book, for example, because there's a lot of action and the book is very carefully and thoughtfully written. It's a bit more elaborate. There's more of a personal opinion there. So, I highly recommend it, especially for people who are, into management or corporate life, or who are trying to, attain success, personally and professionally. So it's a bit longer, it's a bit more descriptive, and it's not as salesy as a back cover blurb, which again reads, great book, buy it. So the Amazon review tends to be a bit more detailed and more personal. So what is a book and what it is? So a book really is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not really the main source of income. People don't get rich typically selling copies of books. It's these other businesses attached to the book that give you money, such as speaking, workshops, and coaching. So some authors like to describe their books in terms of people, right? Some people call it their baby. But I have a more practical view. Books aren't babies. They're more like your employees. They're there to generate income for you. And therefore, you really have to work your book for it to make money for you. So how do you do that? So as an employee, your book's job is to generate ongoing sales, not just from the sales of individual copies of individual pieces, but really from generating corollary businesses like talks, workshops, and coaching. And a book's job is to help you build a mailing list. And the most important feature, part of your mailing list, is the event organizer, the influencer. In other words, these are people who have 1, 5, or 10,000 people in their names list. These are people who are decision makers. They're HR managers. These are people who have access to a company's purse strings. In other words, they're the ones who have the power to hire you either on-site to deliver workshops within a company or off-site at a stage, so they can pay you $2,000, $3,000, or $5,000 for an hour worth of talking. Now, that's where you can really generate income. In a book, keep in mind, positions you as a go-to expert. So just to give you an idea of what kind of money you can make. Now, these are just but 5 of the most common ways that authors make serious money. So the most lucrative, of course, is the keynote speech. So at $10,000 a keynote, and if you say you deliver those once a week, and a keynote only takes about an hour and a half. If you deliver one for every week of the year, there's 52 weeks, but let's just say it's 50. So $10,000 times 50 weeks, that's $500,000 right there. Now, in the world of keynote speaking, keep in mind that as a newbie, you can start from anywhere from $500 to 2,000. If you've been speaking 2 to 3 years or more, for example, if you don't have a book, it's typical to actually be charging between $3,000 to $5,000. Now, as an author, and let's say you crack the Amazon bestseller list and manage to snag TEDx speaker along the way, which by the way I'm going to teach you how to get. It's not unusual to start charging $8,000 to $15,000 for keynote speech. A lot of people are already doing that, and one guy that I know spoke on a TEDx stage with me, Eric Tremwende. He just got out of university a year and a half ago, and I know that he's working with a speaking bureau. And I know that he's not only charging $5,000, he's charging at least $6,000 to $8,000 so that the bureau will earn 20 to 25%. So for a bureau to represent you, they have to make that amount of percentage, and your fee has to be big enough for it to be worth it. So I would say Eric probably charging between $6,000 to $8,000 so that the bureau can earn between at least $1,500 to $2,000 for it to be worth it for them. So remember, this is a guy who's just a year and a half out of university, has not a lot of life experience, and already charging that much. So thinking of earning $10,000 isn't a huge stretch. Even if you earn $2,000, right, during your, let's say the end of your first year, and you did just 12,000. That's 2,000 times 12, 2014. That's nice pocket money. Nothing to sneeze at. It's not huge, sexy, but you know what? Between 2 and 10,000, all you have to do is get a little bit more experience and confidence, and before you know it, you'll be you can easily hit 6 figures just with just keynote speaking. That's the great thing about having a book. It's a calling card that literally opens doors for you. Now let's talk about corporate training. Corporate training usually works out so between 3,000 for half a day to about 5,000 for a whole day. So just get the middle number, 4K for 4 hours, right? So about $1,000 per hour, which is typical, right? It's not huge amounts for companies. They are used to paying a lot. So you tag one of those gigs once a week, times 6 weeks. That's another $200,000 in your pocket. Now, if you plan to do workshops or programs with a 3-day variety that lasts between Friday and Sunday, right? So if you price those up at about $800 a day or about $2,400 per week, did one of those a week, and 50 weeks, so that's another $120K. Obviously, you don't have to do one of these every week. Obviously, they're doing a 3-day weekend. But it's up to you. You can do one of these a month, one of these a quarter. Again, it's another option along this kind of menu of things you can do. Of course, there's the business model that we all are familiar with, which is coaching. So on one-on-one, you can charge $300 an hour as an author because a lot of coaching starts between $100 to $150 an hour for someone who doesn't have a book. So now that you have a book, you can charge between $300 to $500 an hour. If you, let's say, just use 1 day as a week, 300 per hour times 8 is 2,000 a day. So let's say you had one coaching day a week or 2 half days a week, and it's up to you how you schedule that. At 50 weeks, you have another $120,000 there. And if you wanted to create a membership website, let's say you charge $50 for sign up or per member times 100 of those. So a month, you have about 5,000 times 12, you have 60. Add all these up, you have 7 figures, right? 1 million. So you obviously don't need to do all 5. You only did 1 or 2 and did a fraction. It's not very hard to earn 10, 20 to 50,000 working part-time as a subject matter expert, which is something really that you should look at. Again, you can see why I didn't even put sales in individual book units here, because really you can make anywhere from $1 to $5 to sell the book, or even $10, let's say, if you're self-published, right? You sell 5 of those a night. You do book signings, you do 2 or 3 of those a week. So let's say you sell $50 a night to sell 5 books. You do $150 a week 150, even if you did 3 book signings every single week for a year, what is that? 150 times 50, 7,500. Really not a lot of money. You can make that in one keynote speech, which is why you're choosing to write a book. It's an amazing opportunity, especially if you develop the speaking part of your business. So that's why I believe the wholesale market. So the corporate market is more efficient and lucrative than the retail market, i.e. selling books to a bookstore. You deliver workshops, keynotes within a company, you can literally sell them boxes of books. You can sell them 1 or 200 books at a time. Five. That's how you make money. That's how you get the bestseller phase faster. By the way, when you're selling boxes of books, I recommend that you track the number of cases or boxes for total pieces that you're selling. And all you need is 5,000 copies to become bestseller in Canada. Yes, I believe it's probably 2,000. Then you can write on the cover of the year's book in the next printing run, hey, but you switch to a bestseller in Canada or the US. And as a bestseller, whether Amazon or in terms of book sales, total book sales, guess what? You get to charge more as a keynote speaker. Amazon best-selling authors and traditional sales leaders not only have bragging rights, you also are in the position of being able to charge or ask for more money. So website. So how do you build a fan base of 1 or 2,000 people or more? Well, one simple way is that while you're writing a book, if you're thinking of creating a website as you write your book, or if you already have one, I recommend that you incorporate a pop-up box, at least just for the period that between when you start your book and when you launch it, just to accumulate a little bit more followers. And then after your book's launched, you can take it off. So with regards to building a platform, I would recommend that you think about maybe coming up with an e-newsletter and or a blog, preferably both if you have time to do that. In regards to blog, you can even just write once every 2 weeks or once a month. Newsletter once a quarter or once a month, up to you. And the purpose of this, again, is to keep people informed of how your book is progressing. And also, it's there so you can feature other influencers and other experts. And I'll show you why that's important. So also, I'd like to encourage you to meet 1 or 2 influencers per week. So what are influencers? Well, influencers are either conference organizers, meetup organizers, TEDx organizers, or corporate decision makers. So corporate decision makers are people in HR. They might own the company, or they might be at VP or senior manager level. So some of you might be asking, well, why should I bother to do this? Guess what? These 4 types of people will be able to feature you on their stage. So when you're on the stage, guess what? Not only do you gather experience, you can even video some of these, and these will serve as samples of your work. And once you're on the stage, you don't have to speak for free. You can charge people. You can start charging them next week. Or if you're not feeling as confident, charge them 6 to 8 months from now, and use today to the next 6 months to practice. If you feel that you're not as strong as a speaker, fine, target month 6 or 8 or even a year from now to start going after the corporate market. Between now and 6 months or a year, you can practice at little groups like Toastmasters clubs, at Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, really test your talk. And here's the interesting part. You don't actually have to have a book to get on the stage. You don't even also have to have a book to start charging people when you speak on the stage. That's the beautiful thing about being an expert. You can say, oh yeah, my book's going to come out in, let's say, November or February of next year. But in the meantime, I'm delivering my presentation about, then fill in the blank, whatever it is that you'd like to talk about. And then, you know what, once you're confident enough, start throwing out numbers. Yeah, I can speak for now, no problem. I charge $800 or $1,200 or $1,800. You can charge as little or as much as you want, depending on how confidently you say the number. But the difference between a $2,000 and $5,000 keynote, content-wise, is nothing. It's zero. But the difference between being able to get away with charging 2 or 5 grand is your confidence. Is your ability to say 2, 5, or 10 grand without choking, right? Remember Eric Termuende, right? The guy who's just a year and a half out of college. He's charging 6 to 8 thousand because all he had to have was the balls to say, well, you know what? This is what I feel that I'm worth. So do you feel like you're worth $100 or 2 grand? I'll leave that decision up to you. But before we leave this page, I just would like you to think about, starting to connect with these 4 types of people so that they can bring you on the stage and the world can finally get to know about you. So try and figure out how you're going to meet 50 influencers, which is really just one a week. I'd actually like to encourage you to double that number, 100 influencers for the next year. Where can you meet them? Where can you go? Should you go to a meetup? Should you go to a conference? Should you go to panel discussions? There's so many events happening around town. All you really need to do is pick one or pick a few and show up there. And once you meet these influencers, think about interviewing them and then either writing about them, putting it in your blog, or doing some kind of video interview and doing a vlog. That way you kind of deepen the connection and you kind of make them appreciate your effort for, kind of featuring them as an expert. It's kind of I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So once you start thinking more about your book, I'd like you to think about, well, what's the pain or frustration that I'm trying to solve? What's already out there? What have my competitors written? And what is the unique spin about your book that's going to be different from what your competition has already written? So think about these things. I'm going to remind you about them, rather, at the end of the session. And then here's something that's very interesting and important. This is how you're going to reel in your audience. I'd like you to think about the backstory. Meaning, what is it that gets you out of bed? What's your why? And the reason you really have to think about that one is when you're introduced on a stage or introducing yourself to an audience prior to your talk, that first 5 minutes when you tell people why you wrote the book and what drives you to be on that stage, even though you're totally terrified of public speaking, that's going to reel them in. People connect with your why. They want to buy you first before they buy your book. And if you have a very good why, or rather if you have a strong why, then you got them. So that's why I want you to really think about that. So that every time you introduce, the introducer, the presenter, or you can then go back to that backstory of, well, this is why I'm here on the stage. This is why I'm here despite my utter fear of public speaking. That's why I'm standing before you. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to achieve this. Because a year ago, or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I was here, and now I've moved on and achieved this. And now I want to share blank, whatever it is. You have to know all of that. And you have to know that by heart. I also want you to think about what is the change that you want to make and what your motivation was for writing a book. So big, more recent events like the last 1 or 10 years, or maybe it could be something from your childhood that you've always kind of wanted to share, talk about, and now if you have the opportunity, now if you written your book, okay, so now that I'm standing before you, this is what I want to share with you, and this is why. Because when I was a kid, or 5 years ago, this is what happened. And finally, I want you to think about how people benefit from your book, because they're going to feel that. They're going to feel that passion, that desire that you have to help people achieve something. Okay, so back to those strategic parts. So name the game, when it comes to monetizing your expertise is network, network, network. So I hope that once you establish that habit of meeting one or two people a week and meet 100 new people for the next year, I hope that you're going to continue that. Because guess what? The influencers that you meet, not only will they help you, you're going to be able to help them. And the more people that you help along your journey to becoming, an influencer and thought leader, the bigger your name's going to get, the more money is going to get into your pocket. Because guess what? The more people are going to want to help you. But for more people to help you, you have to find them, connect with them, and help them first, right? And an easy way to help them really is to write about them, interview them, feature them in your blog, or do a video interview. So always think joint venture. In other words, think how you can create win-win situations. So how do you build your brand, make money, and how do you help the people that you met along the way build their brand to make money? The easiest way to do that is cross promote. You help promote their events, then in return they help promote your book or your workshop or your course or your coaching program. You see now why it makes better sense to have a newsletter and a blog? Because you kind of got to have a platform to promote. You got to have something to send to your mailing list. And believe it or not, email newsletters by far are still the most effective. It's old school, but a lot of people are signing up courses, workshops, still by doing something email or blogging. So I like to think about connecting with corporate decisions. Now here's just some examples just to get your mind kind of thinking. So HERMA is Human Resources Management Association. CCNA is the BC branch of the American Marketing Association, and of course, Sales Association. So these are the biggest buyers of training and speaking services. So sales, marketing, human resources. These are usually easy places to go to. But other than that, there's always chambers of commerce and the boards of trade, where you can speak for free while you practice during those first 4 to 6 months. So take note, while you're speaking for free, you have a lot of decision makers who sit there and who have budget. So if they like you, they like your talk, after listening to you for free, it's not unusual for them to just walk up and say, you know what, I like what you said. I like your ideas. Do you mind coming to our company and delivering a half day or full day or 3 day work? And that's it, you're in. So free isn't entirely free. Maybe your free talk for the first 4 to 6 or 8 months. Really, that's advertising. That's marketing. That's you not only practicing, getting your name out there, and allowing people to see what it is that you have to offer. So think about creating a blog, Twitter page, or newsletter. You can decide the frequency. This is what we constitute as a platform, or that way in which people will get to hear or get to know that. So the people who will be your top strategic partners will usually come from your personal and your big the people from those two networks are also going to be most likely your biggest source of favorable Amazon reviews to back those links. That's why now I want you to strategically so that everyone that you've met, every single mentor, every single born, look it up. Put the name there, do it saying, well, who can buy my book and write a review? Who can write a blurb about how book is coming? So, regardless, you're going to find a bunch of people that you have connected to. So, not just with them. So, you know what? You now have a physical key to reconnect. For people you haven't seen or talked to in a long time, this is how I suggest that you kind of rekindle that relationship. You can say, you know what? Um, I'm about to write my first book on a second, or whatever it is, right? And I know that we haven't spoken or certainly for a long while. I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to kind of, share with you something important that going on in my life right now because I really want to start to do this. And I'm hoping that you can support or appreciate the support. Things like that. And we're going to present people who won't reply or they don't care they're on vacation. Don't forget, some of them may not have even seen your emails throughout. Some people say, oh, great to hear. I'm always thinking about you, didn't know how to do this conversation. I'm glad you use that. Sure, you get people who are going to be receptive and people who aren't, and some people who just don't agree. But it's a way to kind of reopen conversations with people in your life that you haven't talked to in years. Kind of perfect excuse to say, you know what, I'm back, this is what I'm working on. And I'm hoping that, and again, taking the day call, 20%, 20% people will respond positively, 80% won't. If you look at that practice, you don't have to worry. Out of 500, it's only 1 or 2 people respond. Something out of 300, maybe it's not right. So I want you all to keep in mind, when you're studying this, you're actually creating a loop. And it's all in your assignment. These are going to be your word of mouth spreaders. These are going to be people who are going to help you move forward. These are going to be people who will be influenced by your message, will spread the word, will be your ambassador. Okay, let's talk about book sizes. So one thing I'd like you to keep in mind is that word count influences page count. So I'll get into the word count in a little bit more detail in the next slide. I'd like you to think about the minimum thickness of the book to be taken seriously, which is about 128, 130. So to make it easier to remember, just think 130 pages. You don't want to go below that. 130 and up, that is acceptable. Anything below 130 is more like a glorified brochure. You don't want a book that's 98 or 100 pages. That is too thin and no one will take it seriously. Unfortunately, in the book trade, the book business, perception is reality, and you are judged by your cover. So thin books, thicker books, good. So once you get to the 200-page mark, you start to get into the bigger size, just because it's going to be a too thick small book. So there are two industry sizes, 5 1/4 by 8, 6 by 9. And the usage of either size is really dependent on the number of words you have, which translates into number of pages. So going to number of words. So 20,000 words, 20 to 30,000 words will net you about 130 pages, depending on how many words you have per page. So average length about 220 to 330 words per page. 50,000 words will give you 50 to 60K will give you about 200 pages. 80 to 100,000 words will give you 3 to 400. Now, in terms of length, the trend now is to go short. So between 130 to about 180 is kind of the sweet spot. 200 and especially 3 to 400 and up, that's like huge. People these days are reading less longer books, and authors are also, in general, especially for the business books, not printing too thick, just because people are busy. They want bite-sized info, they want quick takeaways. So the shorter the better. Just remember, not too short, not below 130. So start to aim for between 25 to 30,000 total words after editing. That would be kind of a good length. 20,000, you have to start enlarging the size, the font size of your letters, which is not always good. And try not to go less than 220 pages, 220 words per page. I've actually seen a business book that had 180 words per page, and there's so much white space, it's ridiculous. 220 minimum, 230, that's too many words. That's standard for novels. And remember, your first draft gets cut down between 10 and 20%. just because there's repetition, there's redundancy, so on and so forth. So to get a 25,000 K or word book, you need to write about 28 to 30,000. So once you get 10 to 20% of that cut out, it goes back down to 25K from 30. So let's talk about pricing. So it's pretty simple. The thickness of your book, and the size of your book determines price. It doesn't matter if your book is as valuable as the Bible or War and Peace. The price is just dependent on the size and thickness. That's what it boils down to. That's how publishers look at it. That's how end users or buyers look at it. So 130 pages, page books typically don't go over $15. 200-page books usually they're between 18 to 20, and then the thicker books usually at 23 or 22, about $25. That is kind of the range. Now, the price of your book will just depend on how many words you come up with. It's just that. Okay, so let's talk about putting together a team. So as you can see, I'm a little bit biased towards self-publishing. Why is that? Because when you go with a traditional publisher, getting a book done can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. The only reason for that is because you have to line up between 49 or 99 authors who come ahead of you. And the production team is already working on those 49 or 99 authors that kind of went ahead. So it's a question of demand and supply, whereas if you're working on your book on your own, wow, you could get your book done in as little as 4 to 6 months, which is a far cry from 3 to 4 years. Work with a traditional publisher. That said, I want your book ready so that it can be picked up by traditional publishers. We're training authors to be able to project manage their own book and produce their own book, but I don't want them to limit themselves and not get picked up by traditional publishing, because there's pros and cons to both approaches, right? With traditional publishing houses, they own your rights. In other words, they change the content, change the title, which a lot of authors don't. So that's why that can be a downer. When you self-publish, you have greater control over everything. But if someone offers you a big advance, 1 to 200,000, especially if your book becomes a bestseller, they won't offer you if you're an unknown. They might offer you 5 grand. I mean, yeah, okay, at least think about it. So people cost. So editors are the most expensive. It costs anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 to edit the book or more. Proofreaders are the least expensive. You get them for $500 ish. Then there's the exterior cover and interior layout. They charge you 1.5. Printing, well, depends on how many copies you want. So if 1,000 copies or more, it becomes cheaper. If you print 50 to 100 copies, you might spend $15 per copy, or if you go 1,000, you might be paying $2 or $3 per book. So it really depends. Printing is cheaper the more copies you put out. So look at 3 to 5K on the low range. Typical would be 5,000 or more, just on production side. So now do you see why I focus first on monetization? I want you to make your money right off the bat, because production does cost. And even if you plan to just make it just virtual, you still have to pay for editing. So even if you don't have to pay money at all for printing, and you go, what do you call this? Even if Amazon prints on demand, every time someone orders, that's the only time they print, and you have zero inventory. You still have to pay editors, proofreaders, and publishers for going around that. So that's why the importance of making money even before you print or write your book is so important. I want you to think about how to monetize your knowledge and expertise even before you come up with the book. Okay, so let's talk about ISBN. So ISBN is kind of your book's tag. All books have them, kind of a dog tag, like the army. You're assigned a number, either between 9 and 13 digits. Um, and then this is what the Library of Congress in the U.S. or Library of Canada use to track or trace your book. So they're free if you get them in Canada. They're $99 to get them in the U.S. Except you get 10 ISBN numbers. So again, these are just nothing but codes or tags that every book has, so that the National Library can find them, trace them. Also keep in mind that the less work to the editor, since this is the bulk of your expense, less you have to pay him. And if you're thinking about designing a website from scratch, save money by buying templates for free. Also skins if people prefer. And here's a link on what those potential templates look like. Because all really a designer has to do now is kind of just drop text if you buy one of those free design templates. A lot of them look good, not bad. Okay, so what are some writing and budget best practices? Okay, so really the bulk of the savings you can generate is from editing. That's why I emphasize it, not overemphasize, creating a very thorough and comprehensive table of contents. In fact, I would encourage you to spend 3 to 5 days on the last week of the first month of our course. So organize your thinking through your table of contents. Make sure your material flows logically in your table of contents. In other words, if you're able to map out your book in your head and on paper, start, middle to finish, forwards and backwards, just by looking at the table of contents, then you're written your book, right? So that is probably what I would call a comprehensive summary, if not map, of what you're going to write. So now, it's almost like you have a template, you just have to drop information. In fact, this is the secret to avoiding writing, writing by having table content. It's so thorough that if it's 5 or 10 pages long, even better, because that means it encapsulated all your ideas, even down to story level, in such a way that really all you have to do is kind of follow directions, like having Google Maps or old school maps, and you're not inventing or creating or thinking. Literally, you are just kind of dropping information in your memory. And that's what the power of well organized and properly carefully considered table content can do. So do that the last week of the first month. After session 3, you work on the table content. So basically, instead of turning over kind of a messy first draft, where your editor then makes 8 to 10 grand cleaning up your messy first draft, I'd rather you edit the structure and style of the first draft yourself before you turn those over. That way, when they do the job, they're like, oh, there's very little that has to be done. Really, all I have to do is make sure that grammar and English are tight, structure, the flow, the logic good, and I don't have to do much after that. So that's where they charge the most. Because now they have to spend time moving things around. No, I don't. No, I don't want editors to work with move things around. I want you to move them around yourself from the very beginning. And also, I'd like you to cut down the 10 to 20% yourself, not have the editors do that. That's why when you do your first draft, I want you to clean up your own first draft. So by the time you give your editor your manuscript, your MA, it's already a second draft. Right? I don't want them to do the second and third drafts for you, because that just means you're going to pay them more money. So the way to say it for proofreader is to get someone very well qualified who's a friend or relative to use these discounts, or maybe do some kind of barter. Try and pay an installment if you can, and for great space, subsidiary of Amazon, and cover trade. It pays less than $100 and get create some coverage for you. That's one option. You don't have to use that. And of course, there's good old-fashioned Elance now called Upwork.com, where you can find lower and low cost files all around the world, from US, UK, South Africa, Australia, all the same countries, and even India and Philippines. But beware in that UK you get both. But rather you get someone with be able to see their portfolio. So we charge less than $10. Great. A lot of these people are using expensive, but again, that's another option. If you find someone who's selling the service for cheap and is, has an amazing body of work, experience, in other words, you get a Mercedes-Benz for the price of a Volkswagen. I know that's almost impossible, but there are isolated cases that we have an American editor working in India, not charging a lot. If you can get those kinds of situations, great. Otherwise, you know how much U.S. and Canadian people typically charge per hour. Having said that, though, keep in mind that even if you scrimp on everything else, cover design, proofreading, do not scrimp in editing. That is the number one level of office, because people will see mistakes very easily, very quickly. If the editor didn't catch them, because you didn't have a good editor, you cheap out on the editor, then that's it. The credibility collapses for you to open an office. And I've seen a lot of books that were churned out so fast. Everything's so poor. I didn't even bother to finish the book. And remember, that's the same reaction people are going to have. It's really edited. And they don't finish it, it has not given them higher. But you're going to see if the book is just created badly, skims on quality, well, maybe skims on quality too as a thought leader. So please, consider editors very carefully. With regards to cover design, you may or may not get an actual cover interior designer. You might also the graphic designers who know InDesign are equipped to design a cover for you. Some of them may also know how to lay out text inside a book, in other words, do the interior design, as long as they know InDesign. But not all graphic designers know how to lay out the inside of a book or create a cover, especially if they have zero experience. You don't want your book to be their way to get experience. You want a graphic designer who's worked on one or two or even three books before and is not charging a lot. He's willing to do it for a reasonable price. That's not 15 or 18. So try to find those types of graphic designers. And again, check out their portfolio. You'll know whether they're good or bad first. You have your experience. And you get free proofreading just by asking 3 to 4 people to read your manuscript. Preferably if they're English or literature graduates, they'll do a good job. And maybe I'll have to buy them a pizza. That saves you from paying $500. Okay, so let's talk about timelines. So how long does it take to edit a book? Well, if it's a first draft, editing takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Second draft, faster, that's 10 days. Third draft, hopefully there's no more third draft, about a week. So when you do a very solid, very carefully thought out sort of content, there's no need for special third draft. All you do is give your editor cleaned up. Again, go to the second draft, or cut it down. Remember, you did it at the end while you're writing the book. So by the time you editor gets it, it's already cleaned up by you. That's how you do it. Okay, so let's talk about some publishing tools. So the substantive and structural editing, the stylistic editing, proofreading for users, that's really cleaning up grammar, spelling, punctuation, and all that. You want to eliminate the substantive or structural editing yourself by thinking about the structure. What's the beginning, middle, and end part, logically sequence,
You don't want another person to do that. You want to kind of figure that out yourself. So that by the time it gets to the editor, all they have to do is style it together. Now this is another way for them to describe content. Different words. Some people will call the first level content editing instead of structure or substantive editing. So content editing is, again, you're talking about the overall structure, the flow of ideas, and then copy editing is just basically does it flow very well? Do the sentences kind of in paragraphs? Do they all make does your work right? And if you did the first level, the content editing yourself properly through a very thoroughly detailed bit of content, then the structure kind of takes care of itself. And it's all really the editor has to do is copy it. Or in case of this set of terms, stylistic editing. So I need you to kind of at least be familiar with these so that when an editor asks you, so what am I doing? Am I doing copy editing or content editing? Another editor might ask you the same questions using different words. So do I do structural editing or stylistic editing? So they mean the same things as these, right? So just so you don't get intimidated or stuck. Okay, assignment. What are we to do for the next few days? So by Monday, I'd like you to put together that name list, 500 or more people, outlining, well, who of those people are going to be ambassadors, who are going to be endorsers, event organizers. So for C&D, you might not have them, or you might not have a lot of these yet. I want you to build these up. But bottom line is, I want you to think now of the people in your life a bit more strategically. How can you support them, and how can they support you? And think about what stories you can include in your book. And number three, think in particular who can put money in your pocket. Who are the influencers that you know? Who are the event organizers that if you don't already know, that your friends do know and can introduce to you. That way you don't have to do much cold calling. Then map out a plan on how you're going to meet and connect with one or two influencers a week. So do you go out and go to meetups? Do you go to conferences? Do you go to panel discussions and all that? Where are you going to meet the people who have a lot of names on the mailing list? Where are you going to meet the TEDx founders and organizers? Where are you going to meet meetup founders and organizers and conference founders and organizers? And not to mention HR people, business owners. Where are you going to find them? And how are you going to connect? And how are you going to deepen the relationship? And then second, I recapped all the questions, gathered them here. I'd like you to really think about them and answer them thoroughly, right? What gets you out of bed? What's your passion and purpose? What's the change you want to make in the world? What's your motivation for writing your book, right? How are people going to benefit after they read your book? And what are you trying to fix? What pain or frustration? And in terms of competitor, what's already out there that's kind of similar to your book? You need to know what makes your book different. When someone asks you, well, your book sounds like that book. So what makes your book different? You got to have a ready answer. And what is it that makes your book unique? What's your spin on a topic that's already been written about? So I may have mentioned to you, it's okay to recycle an idea or topic that's been written about 15, 20 years ago. So in other words, if an idea that's been around from 1920 to 1940 to 1960, 1980 to 2000 to 2020, if it's the same idea, the thing that is going to make it different is your point of view, your unique POV, your unique point of view, your own spin. So it's okay that, you talk about the law of attraction again, for example, even though it's been talked about 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100 years ago. What's going to make a difference is your take on the subject of the law of attraction, is your experiences, your stories. That's what's going to make it unique. That's why I want you to think about those stories and your intention, what your experience is about the law of attraction, for example. So it's okay to recycle a topic. In fact, if few people are comfortable with a completely new, entirely new topic. In fact, they want something slightly familiar, but with a different spin. And that's what's going to make your book different from others that are out there. So I guess that's it for session 1. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to getting together with you again next week for session 2. Thank you.